The collective had known peace for 3,000 years. Their 7 orbited gentle suns that gave soft light and pleasant warmth. Their planets had mild weather, low gravity, and calm oceans. They themselves were delicate creatures with thin bodies, translucent skin, and 4 slender arms. They had never needed weapons. They had never needed soldiers. War was something they read about in old history books, a thing that primitive species did before they became civilized. Then the swarm came. No one knew where they originated. They appeared at the edge of the Pale Reach sector like a dark cloud of metal and hunger. Their ships numbered in the millions. Their soldiers numbered in the billions. They did not negotiate. They did not trade. They did not make friends. They only consumed. The first world to fall was a beautiful planet of blue forests and silver lakes. They arrived without warning. Their hive ships blocked out the sun, and their drop pods rained down like deadly metal seeds. The On tried to run. They tried to hide. Some tried to surrender. None of it mattered. They took what they wanted. They captured the young and the strong for slavery. They killed the old and the weak for food. Within 1 week was dead. The High Council watched in horror as their world burned. They sent diplomatic messages to the, offering peace, offering trade, offering anything. They did not respond. They simply moved to the next world. Fell in 12 days, fell in 9, held out for 3 weeks, but only because its people fought with tools and farming equipment. They were not soldiers. They did not know how to fight. They died anyway. Ambassador sat in the emergency council chamber on Prime, watching the death count rise on the screens around him. He was old, even by standards. His skin had faded from its youthful blue to a pale silver. His 4 arms trembled with age and fear. He had served the collective for 200 years, and he had never felt so helpless. "We cannot fight them," said Counselor, her voice shaking. "We do not have the ships. We do not have the weapons. We do not have the soldiers." "Then we must find someone who does," replied. The council fell silent. They all knew what he was suggesting. They all knew who he meant, and they were all terrified of the idea. "The humans," whispered Counselor. "You want to contact the humans." Nodded slowly. "They are the only ones who might help us." "They are monsters," said. "Every civilized species knows this. Their world is a death trap, heavy gravity that crushes bones, extreme temperatures that freeze and burn, predators everywhere, poison in their plants, their insects, their very water, and the humans themselves are worse. They evolved to survive all of it. They are strong beyond reason. They heal from wounds that would kill any normal being. They feel pain but keep fighting anyway. And their history is filled with nothing but war and bloodshed. This is why no one contacts Earth," added. "This is why they are left alone. They are too dangerous." Looked at the screens showing his dying people. "They are also dangerous," he said quietly. "They are destroying us right now. The humans might be monsters, but they are monsters who have never attacked without reason. They keep to themselves. They trade fairly when anyone dares to trade with them. And I have heard stories that when other species have asked them for help, they have given it freely." Stories scoffed. "Rumors and stories." "Rumors and stories are all we have left," said. He stood up, his old bones aching. "I will send the message myself. If the council wishes to stop me, they may. But I will not watch our people die when there might be someone out there willing to save them." No one stopped him. The message was simple. Did not have time for complex diplomatic language. He recorded it himself, speaking directly into the transmitter with all the desperation in his heart. "This message is for the people of Earth. We are the collective. We are dying. An enemy called the Swarm is destroying our worlds and killing our people. We cannot fight them. We have heard that you are warriors. We have heard that you help those in need. Please, if there is any mercy in your hearts, come and save us. We will give you anything. We will do anything. Just please help us." He sent the message toward the distant yellow star that humans called Sol. Then he waited. 3 days passed. 3 terrible days during which forces landed on Prime itself, watched from the capital city as fires burned on the horizon. He heard the screams of his people in the distance. He prepared himself to die. Then the response came. It was short, direct, completely unlike the careful diplomatic messages that civilized species usually sent. The voice was female, calm, and spoke with an accent that his translator struggled to process. This is Commander Park of the United Defense Coalition carrier Indomitable. We have received your distress call. We are on our way. Hold the line. Hold the line. Such a simple phrase. In did not fully understand what it meant, but something in the human commander's voice made him believe that help was truly coming. Far away, in orbit around Earth's moon, Commander Park read the distress call for the third time. She was 42 years old, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see through everything. Her crew called her the Glacier because she never showed emotion in battle. She had survived the Mars Uprising, the Europa Campaign, and 17 other conflicts that should have killed her. She had lost friends, soldiers, and pieces of her own soul in those wars, but she had never stopped fighting. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Commander, stood beside her on the bridge. He was younger than her, 35, with a quick mind and steady hands. He looked at the message with concern in his eyes. "Command hasn't authorized intervention," he said carefully. "The Pale Reach is outside our jurisdiction. We don't even have diplomatic relations with the—" Did not look up from the message. "Navigation," she called out. "Plot a jump to the Pale Reach sector. All hands to battle stations." Stepped closer. "Commander, I understand the desire to help, but we need authorization. There are protocols." Finally looked at him. Her eyes were cold but not unkind. "Someone is asking for help. Children are dying. Families are being torn apart. Entire civilizations are being consumed. And you want to wait for paperwork. I want to follow the rules. The rules exist to protect people. Right now, the only way to protect these people is to ignore the rules." She turned back to the main screen. "Send a message to Coalition Command. Tell them we are responding to a humanitarian crisis in the Pale Reach. Tell them to send reinforcements. And tell them that if they have any objections, they can court-martial me after we save these aliens." Was quiet for a long moment, then he smiled slightly. "The Glacier moves," he said. "The Glacier always moves when someone needs help," replied. "It just takes her a while to get there." The Indomitable was not alone. 11 other ships formed her battle group, carrying a total of 8,000 human soldiers. They were Marines, pilots, engineers, and medics. They came from every nation on Earth, united under a single flag. They had trained their whole lives for moments like this. In the barracks of the Indomitable, Sergeant Lee received the news with a grim smile. He was a large man, broad-shouldered and thick-necked, with hands that could crush stone. He had been a soldier for 15 years and he had seen terrible things. But he had also done good things. He had protected the innocent. He had saved lives. That was why he kept fighting. "Listen up," he told his squad. "We're jumping to the Pale Reach. Some aliens need our help. The enemy is called the Swarm, and by all reports they're nasty pieces of work. Billions of them. No fear, no mercy, no surrender. They eat the people they conquer." Private, the youngest member of the squad at 19, raised her hand. "Sounds bad, Sergeant." Grinned. "Sounds like Tuesday, Private. Gear up. We've got a galaxy to save." The ships jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. In the darkness between stars, 8,000 humans prepared for war. They checked their weapons, tested their armor, and said quiet prayers to whatever gods they believed in. Some of them would not return. They all knew this, but they went anyway. Because someone had asked for help. And humans always answered. The Indomitable and her battle group emerged from hyperspace like thunder breaking through clouds. One moment there was empty void. The next moment, 12 human warships hung in the darkness above Prime, their hulls dark and angular and bristling with weapons. They looked nothing like the graceful curves of vessels. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: war. Ambassador In received the news in his underground shelter beneath the capital city. Forces had pushed into the outer districts. Fires burned everywhere. The screams of his people filled the night. He had given up hope hours ago, but now his communication officer was shaking him awake, shouting something about ships, about humans, about salvation. They came, In whispered, hardly believing it. They actually came. Above the planet, Commander Park studied the tactical display with cold eyes. The situation was worse than she had expected. Hive ships covered half the sky, their organic hulls pulsing with sickly green light. Thousands of smaller vessels swarmed between them like insects. On the planet below, ground forces had already conquered most of the major cities. Millions of were dead or captured. The remaining defenders were scattered and desperate. Contact the leadership, ordered. Tell them we need to meet, now. Within the hour, a small shuttle docked with the Indomitable. In and two aides stepped out into the human ship and immediately stumbled. The gravity here was more than twice what they were used to. It pressed down on their thin bodies like invisible weights. Their legs trembled. Their arms hung heavy at their sides. Even breathing felt difficult, each lungful of air thick and warm. "This is normal for you," In gasped. Sergeant Lee stood nearby, watching the aliens with curiosity. He had never seen non-humans before. They were so fragile, so delicate. Their skin was almost see-through. Their bones looked like they might snap from a firm handshake. "This is Earth standard gravity," he said. "Pretty comfortable, actually. You should feel the gravity on our training stations. That'll really crush your bones." In stared at the human in horror, was smiling, but there was nothing cruel about it. He was simply stating facts. Commander arrived moments later. She walked with the easy confidence of someone who had spent their entire life carrying heavy weight. To In, she seemed impossibly solid, impossibly strong. Every step she took was certain. Every movement was efficient. She wasted nothing. "Ambassador In," she said, offering her hand. In reached out with his upper right arm and touched her hand carefully. Her skin was warm, almost hot by standards. Her grip was gentle, but he could feel the power underneath. She could have crushed his hand without effort. She chose not to. Commander Parkin replied, "You came, you actually came. You asked for help, we came." Said it like the simplest thing in the world. "Now tell me about these, everything you know. Numbers, weapons, tactics, weaknesses." In and his aides were led to a meeting room. Brought her senior officers. Was there, along with Captain Nam, a stern-faced man who commanded the ground forces, and Lieutenant, a young woman who specialized in enemy intelligence. They shared everything they knew. The swarm was massive, perhaps 10 billion individuals spread across their conquered territory. They operated with a hive mind, their thoughts connected through some biological network that no one fully understood. Individual soldiers were 7 feet tall, covered in hard shells, with 4 razor-sharp limbs that could cut through metal. They felt no fear. They felt no pain, or at least they never showed it. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They simply attacked until they won or died. "They have never been defeated," In said, his voice empty. "They have consumed over 1,000 worlds. No species has ever stopped them." Lieutenant leaned forward. "What weapons have been used against them?" "Everything. Energy weapons, kinetic weapons, chemical weapons, biological agents. Nothing works. Their shells are too strong. Their numbers are too great. And even when you kill them, more simply take their place." The human officers exchanged glances, expected to see fear in their eyes. He saw none. "What about their command structure?" asked. "The hive ships," In replied. "Each hive ship contains thousands of and a central brain that coordinates them. If you destroy the hive ship, the connected to it become confused, disorganized. But the hive ships are heavily protected. No one has ever successfully attacked one." Nodded slowly. "Then we target the hive ships." In blinked. "Did you not hear me? No one has ever successfully." "No one has tried with humans," interrupted. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, still smiling that strange smile. Your species evolved on soft worlds, gentle suns, light gravity, no predators. You never needed to fight. You never learned how to survive against something that wanted to kill you. He pushed off the wall and walked closer, and fought the urge to back away. Up close, the human was even more terrifying. His shoulders were like boulders. His neck was thick with muscle. His hands were from countless battles. Earth is not a soft world, continued. Our sun gives radiation that burns and causes cancer. Our gravity crushes the weak. Our weather freezes and boils, sometimes in the same day. Our planet is covered with predators, poisons, and diseases. Everything on Earth is trying to kill you. And you know what? We survived. We adapted. We became the apex predators of a death world. In's translator struggled with the phrase death world. It was not a concept that existed in language. We evolved to eat other animals, said. To hunt them, kill them, and consume their flesh. We have teeth designed for tearing meat. We have eyes positioned like predators, facing forward to track prey. We can run for hours without stopping, chasing our targets until they collapse from exhaustion. We heal from wounds that would kill most species. We keep fighting through pain that should stop us. And when we run out of weapons, we use our hands, our teeth, our heads, whatever we have left. He stopped directly in front of In. You say they feel no fear. Neither do we. You say they feel no pain. We feel it, but we fight through it. You say they never retreat. Neither do we. The difference is we're smarter, we're more adaptable, and we've been killing things that wanted to eat us since before we could walk upright. In swallowed hard. You speak as if war is natural to you. It is, said quietly. We are not proud of it. Our history is filled with terrible things we have done to each other. Wars, genocides, atrocities beyond counting. We have tried to become better. We have built laws and treaties and alliances to prevent conflict. But we have never forgotten how to fight. Because sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to destroy the guilty. She stood up and looked down at the alien ambassador. We did not come here to lose. We came here to win. Tell your people to hold on a little longer. Help is here. In looked at the humans around him. He saw no hesitation in their eyes, no doubt, no fear. They truly believed they could defeat they truly believed they could save his people. For the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. He felt hope. The next hours were a blur of activity. Human soldiers prepared for deployment. Shuttles loaded with marines and equipment launched toward the planet's surface. Warships moved into attack positions around the fleet. Communications officers coordinated with survivors, identifying defensive positions and evacuation routes. Private sat in a dropship with 40 other Marines waiting for the order to deploy. Her pulse rifle was loaded and ready. Her combat armor hummed with power. She was nervous but not afraid. Fear was natural. Fighting through it was human. Beside her sat Corporal Han, a veteran of the Europa campaign. Was 10 years older than, with steady hands and calm eyes. She had seen combat before. She knew what was coming. First time fighting aliens, said. Excited. More like terrified, admitted. Good, terrified keeps you sharp. Overconfident gets you killed. Checked her own weapon for the 10th time. Stick close to me, watch your corners, and remember what they taught you in training. They are big and mean, but they're not invincible. Nothing is invincible. Have you ever fought anything like them? Thought about it? On Europa, we fought terrorists in the ice tunnels. They were humans like us, but they had gone crazy from isolation. They felt no fear either. They kept coming no matter how many we killed. We lost a lot of good people in those tunnels. But you won. We survived. Sometimes that's the same thing. Looked at the young private. They think they're the scariest thing in the galaxy. They've never met us. Today, they learn what a death world breeds. The dropship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of Prime. Outside, the sky burned with fire and smoke. Below, a dying world waited for salvation. Inside, 40 humans checked their weapons one last time and prepared to show the galaxy what they were made of. The hunt was about to begin. The first battle happened at dawn. Prime's sun rose over burning cities and ash-covered fields, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. They had controlled this territory for 3 weeks. They had grown comfortable, confident. They expected no real resistance from the soft creatures they were consuming. They were not expecting the humans. Sergeant Lee led his squad through the ruins of a suburban district on the outskirts of the capital city. Smoke hung thick in the air. Bodies lay in the streets, civilians who had tried to flee and failed. Had seen death before many times, but something about seeing alien corpses made the horror feel fresh. These were not his people, but they were people. They had families, dreams, fears, and they had slaughtered them like animals. "Contact ahead," whispered Private. She was on point, her pulse rifle raised, her eyes scanning the wreckage. Movement in that building, multiple hostiles. Signaled the squad to spread out. 12 Marines took positions behind cover, weapons ready. They moved silently, each step careful, each breath controlled. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, not specifically for alien combat, but for any combat. The enemy did not matter. The mission did. The first emerged from the building and stopped, sensing something wrong. It was 7 feet tall, covered in dark chitinous armor that glistened in the dim light. 4 arms ended in blade-like claws. Its head was a nightmare of mandibles and compound eyes. It looked like something from humanity's oldest fears, the kind of monster that haunted ancient stories. It saw Private and charged. Did not freeze, she did not scream, she did not run. She simply raised her rifle, aimed at the center mass, and fired 3 shots. The pulse rounds punched through this armor and detonated inside its body. The creature stumbled, confused, then collapsed. More poured out of the building. 10, 20, 30 of them. They had smelled human blood and wanted to taste it. They ran toward the Marines with terrifying speed, their blade arms raised for killing. "Open fire," shouted. The street exploded into violence. Pulse rifles crackled. Grenades boomed, shrieked their strange, clicking battle cries as they charged into the storm of fire. Many fell, their shells cracked, their bodies torn apart by human weapons, but many more kept coming. Corporal Hand took a blade across her left arm. The armor held barely, but the impact spun her around. She recovered in half a second, brought her rifle up, and killed the that had hit her before it could strike again. Blood ran down her arm, but she kept fighting. Private went down hard when it tackled him to the ground. The creature's mandibles snapped at his face, close enough that he could smell its rotting breath. He jammed his combat knife into the thing's eye and twisted. It screamed and went limp, pushed the body off and stood up, covered in alien blood, ready for more. The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it ended, 43 lay dead in the street. The human squad had suffered 7 wounded, none killed. They bandaged their injuries, checked their ammunition, and kept moving. This was what they did not understand. This was what no species had ever shown them. The humans did not break. They did not flee. They did not surrender. They absorbed the damage, processed the pain, and kept fighting. Miles away, similar battles erupted across the city. Human squads engaged forces in streets, buildings, tunnels, and open fields. Everywhere the pattern repeated. They attacked with overwhelming numbers and savage fury. The humans held their ground, adapted to the enemy's tactics, and struck back with devastating precision. Lieutenant led an assault on a supply depot near the city center. Her platoon of 60 soldiers hit the target from 3 directions simultaneously. The defenders were caught off guard, unable to coordinate against the multi-pronged attack. Within an hour, the depot was in human hands, and 300 enemy soldiers were dead. Took a plasma burn across her back during the fighting. Her armor absorbed most of it, but the heat still seared her skin. The medic wanted to evacuate her. She refused. "I can still walk," she said, her voice tight with pain. "I can still fight, we're not done here." She led her platoon into the next battle with burned flesh and gritted teeth. She led the battle after that with a broken rib from a tackle. She led the battle after that with blood loss that would have killed most other species. Her soldiers followed her because she asked nothing of them that she would not give herself. The commanders, watching from their hive ships in orbit, could not understand what was happening. Their tactical systems showed impossible data. Human soldiers were continuing to fight after sustaining injuries that should be fatal. Human units were advancing into superior fire, taking losses, and still advancing. Human squads were engaging formations 10 times their size and winning. One commander ordered a study of human biology. The results were alarming. Humans had evolved on a planet with extreme conditions. Their bones were dense enough to support themselves in high gravity. Their muscles were powerful enough to perform extraordinary physical feats. Their skin was tough enough to resist minor damage. Their immune systems were aggressive enough to fight off foreign organisms. And their minds, their psychology, was adapted for sustained conflict in a way that no species in this experience could match. They felt fear but fought through it. They felt pain but ignored it. They watched their companions die and channeled the grief into fury. They were biological war machines wearing the thin disguise of civilized beings. On the ground, Sergeant's squad had pushed deep into territory. They were holding a bridge that connected the eastern and western halves of the city. Intelligence said survivors were trapped on the eastern side. The bridge was the only way to reach them. They knew this too. They sent wave after wave of soldiers to take the bridge, and his 11 Marines held the line. "Ammo count," shouted between bursts of fire. "Running low, Sergeant." "Use it wisely then." The first hour was bad. The second hour was worse. By the third hour, half the squad was wounded, had taken shrapnel to her leg, had a broken collarbone from hand-to-hand fighting, was operating with one working arm, but they kept fighting. By the sixth hour, ammunition was critical, made a decision. "Fix bayonets," he ordered. The squad attached their combat blades to their rifles. Modern warfare rarely called for such primitive tactics, but when the bullets ran out, you used what you had. The next wave hit the bridge with 300 soldiers. The 12 humans met them with blades and fury. It was not pretty. It was not elegant. It was raw, brutal, savage combat of the kind that humans had practiced since the beginning of their species. They stabbed and slashed and beat with rifle butts and armored fists. They bit and kicked and headbutted. They fought like the animals they had once been, the predators who had clawed their way to the top of Earth's food chain through sheer, relentless violence. Killed a by jamming his knife through its eye and into its brain. He killed another by crushing its throat with his boot. He killed a third by tackling it off the bridge and breaking its neck on the way down, somehow surviving the fall himself. At some point, he started singing. An old Korean song his grandmother had taught him about mountains and rivers and the eternal spirit of his homeland. His voice was raw, breathless, barely recognizable as music, but it kept him grounded. It kept him human. The sun set. The battle continued. Reinforcements finally arrived at hour 8, fresh Marines with full ammunition and unjaded spirits. They swept across the bridge and shattered the remaining resistance. When the medics reached squad, they found all 12 Marines still standing. Barely, but standing. "Sergeant Lee," the medic said, staring at the mountain of alien corpses, "how many did you kill?" Wiped alien blood from his face. Lost count around 200, stopped counting after that, seemed pointless. The medic looked at the wounded Marines, at the makeshift bandages and the exhausted faces and the hands still gripping weapons. "You held for 8 hours against that." Someone had to. Finally allowed himself to sit down. His legs gave out the moment he stopped willing them to work. There were survivors on the other side. Children, families. We could hear them screaming. "You think I was going to let those things reach them?" Across the city, across the planet, similar stories played out. Humans fighting impossible odds, humans refusing to retreat, humans dying so that others could live. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had never encountered anything like this. For the first time in their species' existence, they began to feel something new, something uncomfortable, something that made their hive mind buzz with confusion. They did not have a word for it. They had never needed one. The humans called it doubt. Ambassador stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, watching the battle unfold below. The planet's surface was a patchwork of fire and shadow, controlled zones burning red against the dark regions where fighting continued. Even from orbit, he could see the flashes of weapons fire, the explosions of destroyed vehicles, the chaos of a world at war. He had never seen anything like it. They had no experience with combat on this scale. Their history contained small conflicts, disagreements between factions that were resolved through negotiation and compromise. They had never imagined violence could become an art form, a science, a way of life. But the humans had. For them this was normal, expected, almost routine. Commander Park stood beside him, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Casualty reports scrolled across the screen. Humans wounded, humans dead. Each name was a person she was responsible for, a life spent in service of this mission. Her face showed nothing, but had learned to read the tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. She felt every loss, even if she did not show it. "They are enjoying this," said quietly. "Your soldiers, I have watched the combat feeds. They smile as they fight, they laugh as they kill. It is disturbing." Did not look away from the display. "They are not enjoying it, not the way you think." "Then explain it to me, because I do not understand." Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful, measured. "There is something in humans called battle fever. When we face death, when our blood is pumping and our bodies are screaming with pain and fear, something changes in our brains. We become more focused, more alive, more present than at any other time. The fear turns into energy. The pain turns into fuel. Some people describe it as almost religious, a state of pure existence where nothing matters except the next moment." She turned to face him. "Those smiles you see are not joy. They are the expression of humans who have pushed past their limits and found something powerful on the other side. It is not pleasant. It is not good. But it is real, and it keeps them fighting when any sane creature would give up." In process this, you are saying your species is naturally inclined toward violence. I am saying we are naturally inclined toward survival. Violence happens to be an effective tool for survival. We did not choose to be this way. Evolution chose it for us. Look back at the planet. We have spent centuries trying to move beyond our violent instincts. We have built societies based on cooperation and peace. We have created laws and institutions to prevent conflict. And for a while, we thought we had succeeded. We thought we had tamed the beast inside us. But you had not. No, we had just put it to sleep. When someone threatens us, when someone threatens people we care about, the beast wakes up." She smiled grimly. "The thought they were the apex predators of this galaxy. They were wrong. They just had not met the real apex predators yet." Below, the battle continued. Human forces had pushed them back from 3 major cities and established secure zones for civilian evacuation. Survivors stumbled into human lines, half dead from exhaustion and terror, unable to believe they were finally safe. Captain Nam led the ground campaign from a forward command post near the capital. He was a quiet man, methodical and precise, with a gift for tactical thinking. Where was a warrior who led from the front, was a general who saw the entire battlefield as pieces on a board. He had identified the key to victory: the hive ships. "Each hive ship controls in its area," he explained to his officers. "Kill the hive ship and those become disorganized, stupid, easy to defeat. The problem is reaching the hive ships. They stay in orbit, protected by fighter screens and point defense systems." "So we need to get close," said Lieutenant. She had finally agreed to have her wounds treated, though she insisted on staying in command. Her back was wrapped in burn gel. Her ribs were taped together. Her arm was in a sling. She looked like she had been through a war because she had. "Close is an understatement," replied. "We need to get inside. The only way to destroy a hive ship quickly is to plant charges in its core and detonate them. External attacks take too long. They will repair the damage faster than we can inflict it." "An assault team, then. Insert into the ship, fight to the core, set charges, get out." Get out is the optimistic part. The explosion radius is significant. The team would have maybe 60 seconds to clear the ship after the charges are set. Looked around the room. "I will not order anyone to do this. It is essentially a suicide mission. I need volunteers." Every hand went up. Smiled slightly. "I expected that, Captain. You are staying here. You are too wounded to fight." Started to protest but cut her off. "That is an order, Lieutenant. I need you alive to continue the ground campaign if this fails. Sergeant Lee will lead the assault team." Lee stood in the corner, still covered in dirt and alien blood from the bridge battle. He nodded once. "We will need 60 soldiers, fast, tough, and willing to die. I know just the ones." The assault was planned for the following night. Selected his team personally. Many of them were from the bridge defense, and others who had proven their worth in the worst conditions. The rest came from other units, soldiers who had distinguished themselves through courage and skill. They briefed, equipped, and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. Some wrote letters home just in case. Others simply sat quietly, preparing their minds for what was coming. Private found herself next to Sergeant in the shuttle bay, waiting for the mission to begin. She was 19 years old, about to fly into an alien warship on a mission that would probably kill her. She should have been terrified. She was, a little, but mostly she felt calm, focused, ready. "Sergeant," she said, "why do we do this?" Looked at her. "Do what?" "Fight, die, for people we have never met, for aliens who look nothing like us and speak a language we cannot understand. Why do humans do this?" Thought about it. He remembered his childhood in Provence, the mountains and rivers and small villages where everyone knew everyone. He remembered his grandmother singing him songs, telling him stories about heroes who sacrificed themselves for others. He remembered the day he enlisted, standing in front of the recruitment officer and swearing to protect the innocent wherever they might be. "Because someone has to," he finally said. "Because if we do not, who will? They could not defend themselves. No one else was coming to help them, so we came. It is that simple." "But we might die." "We might, probably will, honestly," shrugged. "Everyone dies eventually. The question is what you do before that happens. I would rather die saving strangers than live knowing I could have helped and chose not to." Nodded slowly. "That is a very human answer." "It is the only answer that matters." The shuttles launched at midnight. 60 soldiers in 3 craft screaming toward the largest hive ship in orbit. Enemy fighters scrambled to intercept them. Point defense cannons filled the void with fire. One shuttle was hit and spun out of control, crashing into a cruiser. 20 soldiers died in an instant. The other 2 shuttles made it through. They crashed into the hive ship's hull, their boarding rams punching through organic metal. The soldiers poured out into alien corridors, firing at everything that moved. They responded immediately, hundreds of warriors swarming toward the intrusion point. It was chaos, pure, absolute chaos. Led from the front, his rifle blazing, his voice shouting orders over the deafening noise of combat. Stayed on his shoulder, covering his blind spots, killing anything that got too close. Took point with a heavy weapon, clearing corridors with bursts of suppressive fire. The team pushed deeper and deeper into the ship, leaving a trail of dead behind them. They lost soldiers along the way. Private went down when a blade caught him in the neck, severing an artery. Corporal fell into a pit trap and broke both legs, then kept fighting until they overwhelmed him. Sergeant died holding his body shielding the rest of the team as they advanced. After 40 minutes of fighting, the survivors reached the core. 16 soldiers out of 60. They were wounded, exhausted, nearly out of ammunition, but they had made it. The core was a massive chamber filled with pulsing organic technology. At its center floated the hive ship's brain, a grotesque mass of tissue and nerves that controlled every on the ship. "Set the charges," ordered. 60 seconds after detonation, move. The soldiers worked fast, planting explosives around the core while reinforcements hammered at the chamber's entrances. Fought beside her rifle running dry, switching to her sidearm, then to her knife. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Her vision was blurring, but she kept fighting. "Charges set," shouted. 60 seconds. "Everyone out, move, move, move." They ran. 16 soldiers sprinting through alien corridors, chasing them, time running out. They reached the shuttle bay with 12 seconds to spare, piling into the remaining craft as enemy fire tore through the hull. The shuttle launched. Behind them, the hive ship shuddered. Then it exploded. The blast was visible from the planet's surface. A flower of light bloomed in the night sky, briefly brighter than the local sun. When it faded, the hive ship was gone, along with the 50,000 it had carried. On the ground, forces suddenly stopped moving. Their coordination broke. They stumbled, confused, attacking randomly or standing still like statues. Human soldiers cut them down by the thousands. In the shuttle, Lee sat among his surviving soldiers. 11 people remained from the original 60. They were covered in blood, their own and alien. They were wounded, exhausted, broken in ways that would take months to heal. But they were alive, and they had won. Looked at with hollow eyes. "We did it," she whispered. Nodded, he did not smile. There was nothing to smile about. Too many had died. The cost had been too high. But the mission was complete. The tide had turned. And the war was far from over. The war lasted 14 months. After the destruction of the first hive ship, human forces developed the assault into a repeatable tactic. More teams were trained, more shuttles were modified, more soldiers volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a one-way trip. Hive ship after hive ship fell to human determination. Each one cost lives, too many lives, but each one also freed millions from central control, making them easy prey for conventional forces. Humanity committed fully to the campaign. The initial 12 ships became 20, then 50, then 100. 300,000 soldiers deployed to the Pale Reach, the largest military operation in human history. Industrial facilities on Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies worked around the clock producing weapons, ships, and supplies. The entire species mobilized for a war against an enemy they had never met, for allies they had only just discovered. When they asked why humanity would sacrifice so much for strangers, Commander Park gave the same answer she always gave. "Because you asked for help, that is enough." Swarm retreated across the sector, then across the region, then into the deep space territories they had conquered centuries ago. The humans followed. They liberated world after world, freeing billions of enslaved aliens from species long thought extinct. They found horrors in the domains. Slave pens, feeding chambers, nurseries where captured beings were processed into food for larvae. Each discovery hardened human resolve. This enemy did not deserve mercy. This enemy deserved only destruction. Sergeant Lee fought in 47 major engagements over those 14 months. He was promoted to lieutenant, then captain, but he never stopped leading from the front. His reputation spread through the ranks, both human and alien. They called him the mountain that fights. They called him something that translated roughly to the death that sings, because he still sang his grandmother's songs during battle. Private, now sergeant, commanded her own squad. She had changed in ways that surprised her. The nervous 19-year-old who had joined the campaign was gone, replaced by a calm, focused warrior who could kill without hesitation and sleep without nightmares. She did not know if this was a good thing. She tried not to think about it too much. Lieutenant recovered from her wounds and returned to combat 3 months into the war. She led an entire battalion in the assault on the fortress world of, personally killing a war chief in single combat. The scar across her face from that fight became famous. She refused to have it removed. Ambassador In remained aboard the Indomitable for the entire campaign. He watched the humans fight and die and fight again, documenting everything for the archives. He wanted his people to remember what had been done for them, the price that had been paid by strangers from a death world. Finally, the human fleet reached the. It was a nightmare planet, covered in organic machinery and writhing with billions of. The atmosphere was toxic, the gravity punishing even by human standards, the surface a maze of hive structures and processing plants. This was where the swarm had begun. This was the heart of the enemy. Commander Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable looking at the world below. She was 53 years old now, aged beyond her years by the stress of command. Her hair had gone gray. Her face was lined with exhaustion, but her eyes were still sharp, still cold, still calculating. "Status report," she said. Lieutenant Commander stood beside her as he always had. All ships in position, ground forces ready for deployment, bombardment fleet standing by. Civilian populations. None detected. The do not seem to have civilians in the traditional sense. Every individual is a soldier or a worker, no non-combatants. Nodded slowly. She had expected this, but confirmation still mattered. What she was about to order would kill billions of beings. She needed to know that none of them were innocent. "What about the slaves?" she asked. "The captured species they brought back here?" His face tightened. "Intelligence suggests the slaves on the are kept in deep underground facilities. We can deploy extraction teams, but the bombardment will begin before we can evacuate everyone. Some will be lost." "How many?" "Unknown, possibly millions." Closed her eyes. This was the burden of command, not the easy decisions but the impossible ones. Save some and doom others. Fight a clean war or a winning war, be a hero or be a monster. She had made her choice long ago. Deploy extraction teams immediately. Priority targets are the largest slave facilities. They have 4 hours. She opened her eyes. After 4 hours, we begin bombardment. We do not stop until the planet is dead. The extraction was chaotic, desperate, and miraculous. Human soldiers descended into tunnels, fighting through enemy resistance to reach the slave pens. They found beings from dozens of species, some humanoid, some utterly alien, all of them broken by captivity. They loaded as many as possible onto evacuation shuttles and flew them to safety while the clock ticked down. Captain Lee led one of the extraction teams. He fought through 3 levels of defenders to reach a facility holding over 10,000 captives. His team of 50 soldiers held the extraction point for 2 hours while shuttles came and went, loading survivors as fast as they could move. "Time's up, Captain," reported over the comm. "Bombardment in 30 minutes." Looked at the thousands of beings still waiting to be evacuated. Old ones, young ones, beings so weakened by slavery they could barely stand. There was not enough time. There was never enough time. "Keep loading," he ordered. "We leave when the shuttles are full, not before." "Captain, if we are still on the surface when bombardment begins." "I know, keep loading." They worked faster, pushing bodies onto shuttles, ignoring the still trying to break through their defenses. Fought beside him, her rifle never stopping, her face set in grim determination. She understood what they were doing. She had made the same choice. The last shuttle lifted off with 3 minutes to spare. Captain Lee was on it, along with Sergeant and what remained of their team. Behind them, filled the viewport, dark and organic and pulsing with malevolent life. All extraction teams confirmed clear, reported aboard the Indomitable. Nodded, begin bombardment. The human fleet opened fire. Orbital cannons, missile batteries, nuclear warheads, antimatter charges, everything humanity had developed for destruction rained down on them. The surface burned. The atmosphere ignited. Hive structures collapsed into molten slag. The world cracked and bled fire. The bombardment lasted 3 days. When it ended, there was a cinder, a dead rock drifting through space, its surface glass and ash. The swarm that had consumed 1,000 civilizations was gone, extinct, destroyed. In the aftermath, Ambassador In requested a meeting with Commander. They stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the debris field that had once been an enemy fleet. "You have saved us," In said quietly. "Saved everyone they would have consumed. They owe humanity a debt we can never repay." Shook her head. "We did not do this for payment. We did it because it needed to be done." "But the cost?" In looked at her with something between gratitude and horror. 12,847 humans died in this campaign. I have seen the memorial lists. I have read the names. How do you live with what you are? How do you bear the weight of such violence?" Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was tired, old, human in a way that transcended species. "We remember," she said, "every name, every face, every life we took and every life we could not save. We carry them all here." She touched her chest. "That is the price of being what we are, monsters who choose to protect, killers who dream of peace." She turned to face the alien ambassador fully. "The galaxy left us alone because they feared us. Now you have seen what we can do, what we are willing to do." Her voice softened just slightly. "But you have also seen what we do it for. We did not come here for territory or resources or power. We came because you asked for help. That is who we are." And considered this for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out with his upper right arm and touched his hand. "Perhaps the galaxy was wrong about your kind," he said. Smiled. It was a small expression, tired and sad and genuine. "We are working on it," she said, "one day at a time." The war was over. The rebuilding began. The collective restored its worlds with human help. The liberated species established new civilizations in territories they had once claimed. An alliance formed slowly, cautiously, between the civilized races of the galaxy and the death of Earth. It was not easy. Trust took time to build. Old fears did not vanish overnight. But the humans were patient. They had survived 3 million years on a world that tried to kill them every single day. They could survive a little awkwardness. On Earth, the soldiers returned home. Captain Lee retired to his family's farm in Province. He planted rice in the spring and taught his nieces and nephews how to fish in the mountain streams. At night, sometimes, he dreamed of the bridge on Prime, the singing, the endless waves of enemies that fell before him. He woke from those dreams feeling both proud and broken. Sargent became a military instructor at the Luna Training Academy. She taught new recruits what it meant to be human, to fight through fear, to protect those who could not protect themselves. She never told them about the nightmare she still had, but she always stayed late to talk with the ones who struggled. Commander Park never truly retired. There were always more crises, more calls for help, more people who needed protection. She grew old in command, her hair turning white, her body wearing down. But her eyes never lost their sharpness, and her commitment never wavered. On the rebuilt capital of Prime, a memorial stood in the central plaza. It was carved from granite on Earth, dense and enduring, brought across the stars as a gift from humanity to the people they had saved. The inscription, translated into 100 languages, read, "To the humans of Earth, who came when we called, who fought when we could not, who bled so that we might live. Death, saviors." The children who played near the memorial did not fully understand what it meant. They had not lived through the war. They did not know the fear of ships darkening the sky. But their parents told them stories about the strange, powerful beings from the death world who had answered their call for help, about the soldiers who smiled while they fought and sang while they died, about the commander with cold eyes and a warm heart who refused to leave until everyone was safe. And far away, on a blue-green planet orbiting a yellow sun, humans continued to live their lives. They argued and loved and created and destroyed as they always had. They dreamed of peace while preparing for war. They looked up at the stars and wondered what else was out there. But now the stars looked back at them differently, not with fear, though that remained, but also with hope, with gratitude, with the knowledge that somewhere in the vast, cold universe there was a species that would answer when you called for help. The humans would come. They would bring destruction to your enemies. And they would save you. Because that was what they did. That was who they were. Death. Protectors. Human.